On reflection, life had been pretty good to me. 50 years old, two beautiful girls off at university, and my wife Jade and I about ready to celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary. Things were going well. We owned most of a very nice home in an upmarket suburb and drove almost new cars. My job as regional sales manager for a national company was going strong. Jade, who had only gone back to work 5 years ago, was also in a good place. She had taken a position with Greg, a friend of ours, as his pa, but soon found her feet as part of their promotional team. 3 years in, and Greg offered us a proposition. He wanted to grow the business but needed capital. He offered us a share in the business, and Jade would take up a senior role in their sales and business development team. To say she took to it like a duck to water is an understatement. 2 years later, and she was making more money than me. So what did I have to complain about? Well, I suppose it would be that Jade and I were so busy we didn't see much of each other. In many ways, we had slipped into living different lives, ships passing in the night. Don't get me wrong. Our marriage was strong, loving, and nurturing. It's just I would have liked to see more of her. That was about to change, and we were to have no control over it. The world was hit by a virus, so virulent that the only action was to lock down entire countries using draconian control measures compared by some to martial law. It was a full-blown pandemic, and the actions reflected the danger to humanity. Country and state borders were closed. Schools, churches, universities, and public forums were all shut. In fact, all non-essential businesses were shut and employees ordered to stay home. Those able to work from home were forced to, and only those workers assessed as essential were allowed to work. All shops aside from supermarkets and pharmacies were closed. To support those actions, the police were out in numbers to enforce the new laws. So there we were, locked up, imprisoned in our own home with nobody other than ourselves to talk to. For me, it was the shot in the arm we had been searching for. It was in fact a blessing in disguise. Working from home was like a bit of a holiday. Jade, unlike me, was worried about the business. Being such a new venture, they didn't have the cash reserves of the big players. We set up separate office areas so we didn't interfere with each other. We brightened the day with lighthearted banter about who was making the coffee or making lunch, and it was somewhat of a renaissance period for our happy marriage. For the first couple of weeks, it was like being on honeymoon. We coped. Together, we shared the cleaning and household chores. We slept in on weekends, and we cycled. I had been a fanatical cyclist my whole life, and now Jade saw it as our one chance to get out of the house. At the time, people were only allowed out if they were exercising in some fashion, and still had to maintain social distance of at least 2 meters. Cycling seemed the perfect answer. It grew into our daily break from work and escape from household chores. Over that 2-week period, Jade actually got into it and grew to look forward to it as much as me. The break from our regular routines provided us with the opportunities to dabble in activities we would otherwise have missed due to traveling and long work hours. I took an online massage course as a treat, and Jade was the happy beneficiary of my nightly massages. That, in turn, led to the most amazing sex of our lives. It was like a magical switch had been flicked, and we had been transported back to our first years together. We may love every day, often twice a day, oh God. It was incredible. Jade was, even at 48, still a very attractive, fit, active, and sexual person. She decided to fill in time by taking an online course in aromatherapy, which had delivery vans arriving daily and the house smelling wonderful. Coupling the aromatherapy and massage produced surprising results. As good as life was on the flip side as we slipped into the 3rd week. Things slowed down. It's hard to maintain that level of excitement and interest. We were getting tacky. Cabin fever had started to set in, and we needed a lift to try and get the magic back. I cooked a great meal. Jade seemed impressed with my culinary skills, however, as soon as she finished. She thanked me for the meal and went straight back to work, leaving me sitting by myself. The lockdown had started to bite on their business. I'm not stupid, I realize that, but opportunities like this don't come along very often. A chance to kickstart our marriage, and I felt it slipping away. She was spending too much time on the computer or phone chasing customers and clients. I needed to get her back away from that computer I ran a hot bubble bath and filled the bathroom with scented candles and selected some smooth, sleazy jazz, turned the lights down low. When I walked into her office, she was hard at work typing away like a mad thing. She looked up with a strange expression as I reached out my hand for hers. She stared back at me. Mark, what are you doing? I pulled her up out of her chair and reluctantly she stood. Mark, honey, I have work to do. Putting my finger up to my mouth, I shushed her and led her begrudgingly into the bathroom. She groaned the whole way. Mark, please, honey, I have work, it's important. The moment she saw the bath and the candles, she smiled broadly. This looks incredible, but honey, I have work. My love, I'm sure that your customers will still be there tomorrow, so tonight relax and join the champagne. And soak that gorgeous body. I held her out of her clothes and held her hand as she climbed into the hot tub. As she reclined back in the tub, I passed her the glass of champagne. She sighed deeply. Thank you, darling. I can't believe how thoughtful you are. I am spoiled. I chuckled. Don't worry, my love. I will be seeking repayment later. I might take it out of your body. Oh God, I hope that's a promise. She whispered. I left her lying covered in suds, her head back, eyes closed as she listened to the music and enjoyed the relaxing waters. I walked into the lounge, and as I walked past her office, I heard her phone beeping. It was sure to distract her. If she heard it, I ran in and went to turn it off. When I saw it was from Greg, I opted to open the message in case it was important. As I flipped up the message, I was stunned. There was a message. All right. I started to scroll down the thread of messages and saw some very explicit stuff. As I scrolled down, there were literally hundreds of messages and even a couple of photos and videos. Several pictures of him and several of Jade wearing nothing. Jesus, this was a long-running affair. It wasn't a joke or a prank. This was real. As I sat there stunned, my heart racing, Jade called out, Darling, my glass is empty. I carried her in another glass, and as I stared down at her beautiful smiling face, I didn't know what to say. She sighed, smiling blissfully. Thanks. No worries, love. I walked back to her office lost. The pain was so deep. How could she do that after everything we had been through, raising the kids, building a life for 25 years? We had stood side by side. Overwhelmed and with a wild, burning rage building, I walked outside into the cold night air, trying to call the rising wave. With the anger unabated, I wanted to hurt her. I wanted her to feel my pain, the humiliation, the burning shame. It was crazy and irrational, but plant surfaced. I searched through her phone, excluding the video and photos, and I forwarded the messages to everybody in her contact list. Over 300 contacts would be getting a surprise message. Friends, family, clients, all of them. I plunked the phone into my laptop and downloaded everything. Wondering what she had been doing that was so busy, I opened up her computer. She had been emailing him as well, so that's what was so important. I found a ton of other emails much like the messages. I repeated my earlier action and again forwarded them to her contact list. I got a thumb drive and again downloaded everything. I wanted all the evidence I could muster. I knew right then my marriage was over. I wanted to just walk out, but the bloody virus had us locked together. There would be no escape. We had converted a room over the garage into a bedroom for our daughter. Before she left, for you need to give her some privacy. I started collecting all my stuff and carried it up there. It would be my hangout until this thing was over. I was on my third trip when Jade walked out wrapped in a towel. When she saw me carrying armfuls of gear, she stuttered questioningly, What the hell are you doing? I'm moving into Channel's room until this bloody virus thing is over. Mark, what is going on? You're scaring me. You're acting crazy. Piss off, Jade. As of right now, our marriage is over. I will be filing for divorce as soon as I can. I pushed past her roughly as she cried out, Mark, talk to me. What's going on? It will become obvious. Just leave me alone. I recommend you find a solicitor as soon as possible. She called out after me as I walked away, leaving her staring open mouth at me. I locked myself in and waited for things to hit the fan. It didn't take long, and there was ferocious banging on the door. Jade was crying and screaming hysterically. Mark, why didn't you talk to me? You have destroyed everything. Christ Almighty, say something. Why don't you see if Greg can fix it for you? Silence. Then the crying, frantic agony filled. Sobs. Mark, I am sorry. I didn't mean hurt you. When I didn't respond, she snarled. Christ, it was just sex for God's sake. How she could feel and sound affronted after her actions was beyond me. Well, I hope it was good because it's ended our lives together. Everything we worked for. Why, Jade? Tell me why. Her sobs started again, and they suffocated her words as she blubbered. Mark, it was just sex. It wasn't important just sex. It was wrong. I know that, but it was harmless. If you will just talk to me, we can get past this. It's been going on for months looking at those texts. Mark, please open the door so we can talk properly. Let me explain. Let's talk about it. No, Jade, the chance for talking is gone. Now it's just a matter of cleaning up the mess. Yeah, well, you have certainly created that. She snapped through the sniffles. Christ, Mark, you have probably destroyed Greg's marriage as well. I didn't do anything, you created this. Or was your concern for his family while you were screwing him? Don't cry to me about his marriage. Mark, if you had just talked to me, we could have tried to fix it, found a way past it. But now, Jesus, everybody knows. God knows what the girls will say, or mom and dad for that matter. I never realized you could be so malicious, so evil. Evil. Oh my God, Jade, you carry on a 6-month affair with our friend and tell me I am evil. For the love of God, woman, you are now being ridiculous. Mark, honey, nobody needed to know, we could have fixed it ourselves. It's not the end of the world. Like hell, it's the end of the road for me. Mark opened the door. Honey, please. Let me make it right. Leave me alone. Jade, I just want a good night's sleep and a chance to clear my head. It took her a half an hour of banging on the door for her to realize I wasn't answering. Finally, she walked back inside, leaving me and my anger to boil. I plugged in my laptop and sorted out her text into a file that I could send to a solicitor. In the morning, I was filing for divorce. I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to battle with my conscience. Our marriage was over. As I worked collating all the evidence, my phone buzzed relentlessly as I had turned it to vibrate. I was not ready to face anybody. I guessed it was our daughters or parents. I wanted a chance to calm down before speaking to them. It was a long night, tossing and turning, drifting in and out of sleep. I woke up at about 9 and wandered in for a shower and some breakfast. As I walked in the back door, Jade was at the bench making coffee. She turned and glanced quickly at me. Morning, Mark. Do you want some? She looked terrible. Her eyes were bloodshot, red and sagging. No thanks. I will get mine when you're finished. I am going to shower. Suit yourself. Be like that. I locked myself in the bathroom as I showered and tried to fortify myself for what was going to come. As I walked into the kitchen, Jade passed me her phone. I didn't want to take it. But in the end, whoever it was, I was going to have to face today, one way or another. Hi, Mark. It's Greg. I just want to say I am sorry for what happened. It's not Jade's fault. It is me. Must blame. I cut him off mid-sentence. Forget it. Greg, it's over. You and I will be seeing each other once this virus thing is over, and we will finish it like men. I disconnected before giving him a chance to say anything else. Jade stood there staring at me. Mark, he was just trying to apologize, say sorry. He can shove his apology where the sun doesn't shine. The next time I talk to him, he better be ready. I walked past her and noticed she had made me coffee. I tipped it out and made a fresh one. She glared angrily at me. I made that for you. Yeah, it was probably laced with rat poison. Jade, I don't want to see or talk to you. I am going to arraign my solicitor. As soon as I have made coffee, I suggest you do the same. She tried to grab my arm and turn me back. Mark, please, honey, if we could just sit down and discuss this calmly, we can fix it. We have been through so much. This is just a bump in the road. If you let me explain, I'm sure we can straighten it all out. Okay then, Jade, tell me why. She leaned back against the sink. I don't know, honey. I guess it was the big 5-0 racing towards me, and recently I have been feeling unattractive. It's different for a woman. All my life men have noticed me. I'm not blind. I know I'm attractive, but as I've got older the looks have stopped. I started to feel invisible. The young guys no longer see me, and I felt old, and then Greg flirted with me. Flattered me, made me feel desirable. Then one day I told him how I was feeling, and he kissed me. And I let my defenses down, but honestly, it was just sex. How shallow are you, Jade? All this because you were feeling your age. We all get old. You were supposed to talk to me. You were supposed to let me help. Let me make you better. Oh, yeah, it's easier for you, Mark. You look better now than when we were younger. We go out somewhere and I see the pretty young girl staring at you. You have got better looking, and I look old beside you. Over God's sake, we were supposed to get old together. That's what life's about. I wanted to grow old with you, spend the rest of my life with you. Sobbing, she mumbled through her sniffles. We still could. Mark, I love you. I always have. That hasn't changed. Shaking my head, I moaned. Ring your solicitor, Jade. You will need all the help you can get. With my coffee poured, I walked out to the room and flopped back on the little sofa. Geez, what a flaming mess. All I wanted was to get away, but here I was locked up, imprisoned with the crazy woman. As I sipped my coffee, I got another call. It was Melissa, Greg's wife. Hello, Mark. She had obviously been crying. I am sorry. I don't know what to say, but thank you for letting us know. That's fine, Melissa. I needed to for my own sanity. What are you going to do? She sighed. I don't know, God. Everything is so messed up. I want to kill him, divorce him, but it's not that easy for us. Our children are so young, everything we have is tied up in the business. We are a mortgage to our bloody eyebrows. If I walk out now, it will be going home to my parents' place, and that would be hell. You have to do what you see is right. What about you? What are you doing? She asked. I am ringing my solicitor the moment I hang up from you, and I am filing for divorce. I am so sorry, Mark. Is there no way you can work it out? No, as far as I am concerned, it's over. We talked for a while longer before hanging up. Arthur, my solicitor, was shocked when I told him the story. He had been a large part of all the major decisions of our lives, especially the refinancing and investment in Greg's business. He asked me what I wanted to do, and I informed him that I wanted to file for divorce. I offered to send him the files, but he laughed. It doesn't matter. Maybe she is in the wrong and adultery is grounds for divorce, but it won't help you. There's no escaping the marital act. She will get half of everything even though she's in the wrong. Accepting his news, I mumbled. Just send me the paperwork and I will fill it out, but I am definitely finally under adultery. I want everybody to know. Mate, the only advice I am going to offer is go easy, pal. You are angry now. I will send the paperwork, but please give it a bit of thought. The decisions you make now you have to live with for the rest of your life. Later, the paperwork turned up, and I was filling it in when my phone rang, checking the name it was. My eldest daughter, Katie. Dad, what the hell is going on? I just spoke to Mom, and she is hysterical. I couldn't understand one single thing she said. Is all this stuff true? The emails and texts, is it real or is it some stupid prank? She was totally disbelieving. This was her mother, her beautiful, caring, loving mother who she was so close to. I heard the disbelief in her voice. Sucking in a deep breath, I groaned. Yes, it's true. I only found out yesterday myself at the same time as everybody else. Flaming hell, who sent it out? It came from Mom's email. Feeling a little guilty, I spluttered. It doesn't matter who sent it. All that matters is that we found out. Well, what are you going to do? I am filing for divorce, of course. What did you think I was going to do? A sharp intake of breath preceded her frantic scream. Dad, no, please, no, no, no. Then there was silence before she followed with, divorce, that's a bit much, isn't it? Surely you can try to get past it or something. This is Mom we are talking about. Dad, it's just a mistake, it has to be. You've been together forever, and she loves you, you know that. I used to know that, Buttercup. I would have bet my life on it, but now all I can do is try to stop myself from killing her. You don't mean that, Dad? That's just the anger. Slow down and take a breath. Surely divorce isn't the answer. Maybe you could try counseling or something. Sorry, Buttercup, but I have made my mind up. I want out. She has humiliated me enough. The conversation dragged on as she tried to get me to change my mind. We went over and over the same old words. In the end, she hung up as confused and frustrated as me. July, my other daughter, wasn't far behind Katie, and again the afternoon disappeared as she tried to get me to change my mind. Unfortunately, she didn't believe it was true and tried to convince me it was just some weird hacker or something. Even with her impassioned argument, nothing could change my mind. I completed the documents and returned them to Arthur. When I rang him, he did offer me another bit of advice. Split the finances now before it gets acrimonious. That made perfect sense, and I started to go through our finances and assets. We only had one bank account, and it was a joint account, and everything swam off that: credit cards, mortgage, everything. It was impossible to open another account over the phone. I needed to go in there in person. Everything was tied together. The only good news was she couldn't do anything either, so for the time being, the money was safe. Of course, the rest of the day was filled the same way, answering call after call from friends and family, all wanting to know what was happening. I was sick of explaining it by the end of the day. Jade's parents were the worst. They could not or would not believe it, and they were very seemingly convinced that it was some evil plot dreamed up by me to discredit their daughter. Dinner time, I went inside and was sorting through the cupboards looking for something to eat when Jade walked in. "Can we talk yet, Mark? Please, we need to talk about this. Katie and July are devastated you scared them half to death with all this wild talk." "It's not wild talk. I was honest with them. I told you, Jade, I have already talked to Arthur and I have filed the paperwork. We are now in the process of becoming divorced." "Jesus Christ, Mark, this is ludicrous, honey. It was just sex. I wasn't having a love affair or planning to run away with him. It was stupid and selfish, but it doesn't have to be the end of the world. My God, you are acting crazy." "No, the crazy bit was me not seeing it, Carrie. On right under my nose. I must be a moron. You must have been laughing. Jesus, all those families get together. You and him must have had a good old laugh." "No, honey, it was never like that. We never laughed or talked about it even. You have been screwing for 6 months. Don't tell me that you never once had a laugh at sneaking away or getting away with something." 6 months, Jade, 6 months. Her face dropped. "We never made fun of you or Melissa. Say what you like, but I feel like a fool all that time. And I loved you, brought you flowers for your birthday. What did he give you? A quick screw? Jesus, how many times did we make love after you had been with him?" "Never," she screamed. "I would never do that to you. I love you. I'm sorry I didn't think about it. I didn't mean to hurt you. It just started off as a bit of innocent flirting and fun. Please, Mark, can't we just sit down and talk?" "No, we can't. It's over. You will receive the papers in a week or so. Just sign them and send them back." "Like how I will? There will be no divorce. You are being silly. We can fix it." I didn't respond, and she burst into tears. "Mark, you have already destroyed me, my career, and Greg's business. How much revenge do you want?" "This isn't about revenge. It's about getting closure and moving forward." I grabbed some crisps and left her there staring after me. The next day I was woken by Jade banging on the door. I opened it to see what she wanted, but she pushed her way in. "Mark, Greg, Melissa and I talked last night, and we have a plan to try and save the business. We are going to say a disgruntled employee who we sacked hacked my email account and set the whole thing up as retaliation for being laid off. Say what you want, I don't care. Mark, we need your help with this. If we are going to get people to believe it, we need you to help. Would you please support us?" I laughed like hell. "If anybody asks, I will tell them the truth. People need to know the sort of lying, manipulative, despicable they are dealing with." My vehemence shocked her. "Melissa has agreed. She is going to get behind us. Mark, I am begging. Greg and Melissa will lose everything. His reputation is in tatters. That's his fault, not mine." She stopped her foot down. "Well, that's what we are saying. We will tell everyone, including the kids and mom and dad. Sue yourself, but I won't help." Over the next week, every time I walked inside, she was on the phone talking to customers, distributors, anyone who had received the email. I left them to it, but I did get a call for Melissa, begging me to help. They were desperate to resuscitate the business and save Greg's reputation. Melissa seemed to have forgiven him and openly begged me to reconsider my stance. I was so sick of the whole thing. All I wanted was for it to be over, but there was no escaping the daily drama. There was no escaping the hellhole that our home had become. Katie called several times and she became increasingly upset with me. Her mother even had her convinced that it was this weird, twisted plot to discredit her mother. She argued with me that I had to see it for what it was and forgive and forget. Of course, all I had to do was send her the video clip, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Instead, I went the other way and tackled her mother. She was in her office working harder than ever, working with new customers. I pulled out the chair beside her desk, stretched out, and folded my arms. Jade, you need to tell Katie and July the truth. They are driving me crazy with this about the hacker. She recoiled. What? Why not let sleeping dogs lie? Because they won't leave me alone. They are on the phone every day lecturing me about why I am torturing you with a divorce. They think I'm the bad guy. She leaned forward across her desk, resting on her elbows as she stared straight at me. Mark, if you let me, I will make everything up to you. Give me a chance to make it right. Forgive me. And let's start again. We have managed to get all the customers back on board, and it looks like we are almost back to normal. Jade, if you do not tell the girls the truth, then I will be forced to send them the final bit of evidence I have. Mark, please, why can't we just leave it this way? Nobody loses. Yes, they do. I lose at the moment the girls are treating me like I am the bad guy because I'm not buying your either you tell them or I will. No, it's not fair. I don't want a divorce and them girls and I are just getting things straight. I am not spoiling that. Anyway, there's nothing you can say that would make them believe it. I pulled a thumb drive out of my pocket and waved it in front of her. On this thumb drive is the video of you sucking off Greg. I think that might convince them. She just about fainted. Oh my God, you wouldn't. I nodded. Either you tell them or I might just send this to all of your contacts, including our parents and the kids. Jesus, Mark, you are such a prick. Why do we have to get a divorce? It's over between Greg and me. Give us a chance and I promise I will spend the rest of our lives together making it right. You can't make this right, Jade. Even if I could forgive you, I could never trust you again. I would always be looking over my shoulder wondering who you were screwing. Jesus, girl, I mean, Greg might not be the only one there. Might be hundreds. She snarled violently. Get out. Get out now. I rose, and when I got to the door, I hissed. Either you tell them or I will. It took a couple of days, but my daughter rang me to apologize for being so hard on me. She had spoken with her mother, and she asked her to lighten up on me and that we were working through things ourselves. She obviously hadn't told her the truth. But at least now Katie was being a little more understanding. It was when I rang and talked to a real estate agent about selling the house that Jade blew up. When I told her, she became hysterical. Jesus, Mark, we can't sell a house. What will everybody think? It has taken hours and hours on the phone to explain and convince everyone that we are okay, and now you want to sell a house. Jesus, be reasonable. I was a little shocked at her blasé attitude. Listen, Jade, we both are going to need somewhere to live. I know we cannot afford to buy out my share of the house, so you can't stay here. I don't want to stay here. It has nothing but bad memories for me now. I think the best thing is we sell the house, and then we can each go our own way. She grabbed my hand, tightly squeezing it between her own, and stared into my eyes. Or we could stay and try to make a go of it. Mark, I love you as much now as I did when we married. I don't want a divorce. Can't we work things out? For someone who says they love me, you sure have a strange way of showing it. Having an affair doesn't show love. Gripping my hand tighter and with tears rolling down her cheeks, she sniffled. I made a mistake. It was dumb, it was selfish, but it doesn't mean I don't love you. We have made plenty of mistakes over the years. Both of us, Mark, we can work through this. Jade, you just don't get it. You lied to me for months. You lied to me, and you would have kept on lying to me. You say it's over between you and him. But if I hadn't found those messages, it would still be going on, wouldn't it? She stroked my hand gently. Mark, please, just tell me, would it still be going on? Once all this is lifted, you be back together. She sighed, staring at the floor and the silence. Built longer and longer until I snapped, snarling. Well, it wouldn't. She whispered hoarsely. I don't. No, I suppose so, but things have changed. We have been so much closer since the lockdown. You have been so loving and caring. Things are different. She pleaded, "It's over now, and if you give me a chance, we can put it behind us and forget it ever happened." Jesus, Jade, you don't even have any remorse. You just expect me to suck it up and say, "Oh, well, never mind." Let me tell you something. Life isn't like that. I snatched my hand away. We are selling the house. It's going on the market tomorrow. I walked away, leaving her looking completely deflated. It was a bad time to sell. Real estate agents couldn't visit the house. They couldn't bring prospective clients around. It would have to be done online and relying on photographs I took. I spent the day taking photos that I thought highlighted the home's best features, sent them to the agent, and the next day, the house went on the market. Well, that created a maelstrom of calls from friends and, of course, family wanting to know what was going on. Jade took all the calls trying to deflect the truth. She told everyone some crazy story about us looking for somewhere better. As the country got control of the virus and restrictions were slowly lifted, we have a little more freedom. Things were going to slowly return to a more normal way of life, but that was a month away at least. Over that month, things calmed between Jade and me. We had dinner together. We managed to talk without arguing or yelling. The anger was slowly abating. At dinner one night, she asked, "What could I do to make you change your mind?" "I will do anything." Glancing across the table, I sighed. "I don't think anything will help. I have lost trust in you, but if we were to try and make a go of it, the first thing would be you quitting your job." "What?" She choked. "I can't do that because I have shares in the company. We own 35% of the business now." Jesus, Mark, I love that job. I love being part of building it. "Honey, I promise it's over. Between Greg and me, it's over. You made me that promise 25 years ago on our wedding day. It obviously meant nothing then. Why should I trust you now?" She slumped back in her chair. "Mark, I made a mistake. I know that, but I promised. What else can I do?" "Quit your job. It seems simple to me. If you want to try again, that's what I require. And even then, I make no promises." She shook her head. "I don't see what difference it makes. Mark, I love that job. I have put everything into it. Why can't we just try to move on?" "Because you would be working together every day, traveling together. I can't do it. If you want to reconcile, then that is the first building block." "No, Mark, that's not fair. I will do anything else, but I am not giving up my job." "That's fine, Jade, but it shows me exactly where I stand, doesn't it?" That little exchange led to prolonged discussions/arguments for my daughters, as they tried to play the intermediaries, but they were on my side. They both tried to get her to see my side, but she was adamant. I don't know whether she was just being stubborn, whether she thought that maybe she could have her cake and eat it as well, or whether she was just plain stupid. Later, as we were watching the late news, she snuggled nervously against me as we watched television. "Mark, will you sleep with me tonight? I need you back in our bed." Pulling her head closer and kissing her on the forehead, I said, "I don't think that's a good idea. That would just confuse everything." She tried to turn our kiss into something deeper. "Mark, honey, it could be the first step in reconciliation." "I don't want reconciliation. I want to move on." She burst into tears and ran off to the bedroom, and I could hear her crying her eyes out. Turning off the television, I headed for bed myself. The paperwork came back from the solicitors, and they were unsigned. Jade refused to sign. She wanted to fight. It took several days of constant fighting and me threatening to send out the video of her blowing Greg to get her to sign. The realization of the inevitable had finally sunk in, and she came to grips with it. When the restrictions were lifted, it took only a couple of weeks for the house to sell. I found a small apartment in town, as did Jade. She found one closer to her office. Our daughters went through a period of hating and blaming me. July was the worst. She believed her mother and blamed me for not supporting her. It took a while before we could talk. "July, when have you ever known me to act without knowing the full story? Look back over your life and tell me one time when I reacted too quickly or too harshly with you." She pondered for a moment before responding. "Never. Dad, you were always so fair with us. That's why this seems so wrong. You know what hurts, July, is that you have never considered that I know the truth and my actions are not an overreaction, but the logical outcome." She sighed, glaring at me. "So you were saying that Mom actually cheated?" I nodded slowly. I don't believe it, Dad. She would never do that. She loves you. Couldn't you go to counseling or something? What would you do if you found out your boyfriend had cheated on you in July? Would you be giving him a second chance? I could see the reality dawning on her. We parted on better terms. Living apart made the divorce go easier. We split everything 50-50, although at first things went well for Jade. The difficulty was Melissa. She tried to come to grips with Jade and Greg still working together, but she struggled just like I would have. How did she trust them? We no longer stayed in touch. She blamed me for some of their difficulties. Crazy how some people react. Melissa figured if I had forgiven Jade and stayed with her, the trouble she was having with Greg would somehow have been eased. Now Greg was Jade's closest ally, but with Melissa's constant nagging, a gap had started to appear, and he was forced to step back, which hurt Jade. She spent most nights crying on the phone with our daughters, which in turn drove them to call me begging to forgive and forget. Greg, the moment the restrictions lifted, I took my chance. I made him a promise, and it was time to act. I waited in the car park of their business. The day of reckoning had arrived. The moment he walked out into the car park and saw me, he stopped in his tracks. Mark, I am sorry, I was a fool, and I apologize for this storm. I took off my jacket and laid it over the bonnet of my car. Greg, I promised you I would come for you, while now I'm here. Let's do this like men. He backed up quickly. Mate, I don't want to fight you. It won't solve anything. You were not my mate. You gave up that privilege when you screwed my wife and lied to my face. He realized as I approached him that this was happening. He dropped his briefcase and started stripping off his jacket. The moment he threw aside his jacket, I was on him. We were pretty much the same size, and neither of us were what you would call fighters, but I had anger on my side. A cold, dirty feeling in the pit of my stomach that needed to be released. As I punched him, the pain eased a little, my stomach unwound. It wasn't all one-way traffic. He landed a few as well, but fueled by my anger, I kept going. The only thing that stopped me was a cop tracking me off him. When I looked around, there was a small group gathered watching, and amongst them was Jade, who had her hands up covering her mouth. She looked horrified. The cops separated us, and Greg and I stood up staring angrily at each other, blood running down his face and a broken nose and split lip. He was no oil painting, but then again, neither was I. Jade walked up, but as she neared the cop, raised his hand. Step back, please, lady, let me sort this out. She stood rooted to the spot, her eyes focused on me, pleading, questioning. The cop broke the moment, pushing us back against the car, and started questioning. To his credit, Mark didn't try to blame me or lay any charges. He simply told the cop we had a disagreement and there was nothing to it. The cop wasn't convinced, but what was he going to say? He settled for making us shake hands. As we shook hands, Greg held on longer than was needed. I am sorry, mate, I never planned any of it. It was just an error in judgment. He dropped my hand when I refused to accept his apology, and I turned and walked towards my car. Jade ran after me. Mark, I am sorry. I kick myself every day I screwed up, but can't we at least try? Jesus, 25 years, Mark, 25 years. It has to be worth something. I'm sorry, Jade, but I can't. I kick myself every day as well. Why didn't I see it? You carried on that affair right under my nose, and I didn't even know. There's no way we could live together because I would always be wondering, where are you? Who are you with? I walked away feeling lighter, stronger, and a whole lot better. Violence may not solve anything, but sometimes it cannot be avoided. With the restrictions falling and the world returning to business as usual, the media was full of all these good news stories about how we survived the virus, while something survived but others died. Millions unemployed. Businesses failing their doors never to open again. Food banks overrun, poverty at the highest levels since the Great Depression. Yep, some things could not survive.